Hello, this is Taj McCameron for Podcast Production Development, and today we're going to be talking about how to monetize your podcast. So let's begin, shall we? In our last video, we discussed the process of working on the development of a website. In that, I showed you how I developed the multiple pages for this website. Went through here, created the blog, the podcast, the healthy eating. I created an about section where you learn everything about me and where my background comes from. Now, one might say, okay, that's all good and fine, but now what? Some might wonder, if I have the podcast, why would I need to do anything else? Why would I need to create a website? Why would I need to have these extra elements to add on to a website? Why? What would be the necessary element if you already have your Anchor podcast? Well, I'm going to show you right here. As you see, there are multiple different places that you can watch the podcast on. That's all good. But at the original, then you have Anchor. Anchor has this beautiful feature that you can go into that you can create sponsored advertisements. With sponsored advertisements, you will get paid every time somebody plays your podcast. Now, it's pennies on the dollar. You don't get much for it. But it's a starter to begin to get income for your podcast. Now, after that, there are other ways and fields that you can begin to make money using your podcast. If you want to turn your podcast into a brand that is making you money, I'm going to tell you and cover 2 points at once. You should create the podcast as a legal branded entity. By doing this, you are legalizing your podcast. Now, let me see. You can come here to a place like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyers and look up getting agreements. You can turn your podcast name into a LLC. You can turn it into a sole proprietorship. You can create a business contract that will especially even if you're doing a partnership, you can have a business contract. If you want to turn, especially if you're doing branding and collaboration, we'll talk more about that when it comes down to promoting and launching the uh, podcast in the next video. But you want to turn it into a legally branded entity, especially if you're planning to use it as a brand for you and you're planning to do this long term. You can create a business contract that if you're working with somebody, you're collaborating with somebody, or you're doing something more than just a regular conversation, if it becomes something more, this is something that may come down the line, especially if you decide to partnership. Perfect example. If you're decide that once you created the podcast, you've got good flow going and you want to turn it into a talk show. Nowadays, you don't really have to do it like that. You can do it on YouTube and turn your podcast into a talk show through YouTube. Why would you want to do this, and how does this have to do with monetization? If you turn your podcast into a YouTube show, I believe T.I. just created one last year. Yes, he created one last year because I watched the one that he did with Tyler Perry. But he created a podcast that was also a video show. As I said before, Wendy Williams did one years ago before she got her talk show. When it comes down to podcasting, people will do their podcast as just a regular talk show. 2 mics, they record themselves, so on and so forth, so that they can create a audience and a following. Then they will convert the visual podcast into conversations, looks like more like talks, where you have people sitting on couches and so on and so forth. And slowly they will convert the podcast from a regular conversation piece into a talk show. This is the best place to do it, to transition from podcasting to talk show. And if you and the other great element about it is, let me see if I can find, I'm just going to pick a musician because that's all I can think of right now. I'm going to show you it. You see this? You want to create a YouTube channel if you desire to create a YouTube, because of the fact that you can put all of your merchandise in a feed below your video and sell it. You can sell anything on your YouTube channel at the bottom of your video. You will be able to put your podcast at the top and put your merchandise at the bottom. How do I know? Well, let me show you. I have my own store for Steam to Live the Dream. I have products that are in the back office. T-shirts, cups, mugs, sweatshirts, hoodies, pillows, anything anybody would want, you could find it in my back office. I have over 200 products that can be sold. And the good thing about having a website, I could take pictures of these, screenshots, or even do an embedded link that could be an advertisement that posts on the side panel of my website, which allots people the ability to click on the side and go to my store. They can have, if you have a YouTube channel that you have connected to your website, and especially if you have videos, a good way to do this in tandem. I told you in the last broadcast that, let's go here. You can turn your podcast into a blog. You can do articles, content, so on and so forth. That would be blog posts. These were posts from my previous blog. And you can do a multi. Let's say you're talking about music, you would put the music video. You could put the music video at the bottom, but here's the catch. You can put the music video in at the bottom. If you're doing a podcast that does video, you can put your video at the top. You can convert. I showed you the other day. Otter. You can convert your entire conversation from your podcast into a blog post, post it as your article, do your podcast in video form on YouTube, put your merchandise at the bottom of your YouTube video, put your video, you can have a highlighted post, just as the blog says here. You could have a featured post here. You could even do it so much so as you could create a section where you post the most recent video at the top. Do a band in the middle that has, like, this would be the featured post image. Then you could do your YouTube video as a second element. You could actually put the article up for it. There's a way to convert it where it will show you the featured thing, and you can click to see the actual blog post. And at the bottom, you can do a trundle that rotates through your products by putting in images. And when you click the image, you can connect the image to a link to your product. That's one way if you have your own merchandise that you can do it. Next If you don't have your own merchandise, you could do it. Let's see if I can find this. This is Amazon Associates. You can become a Amazon associate by having your own website outside of your podcast that your podcast is promoted through. You can also put products in your video or in your website that shows up that you are able to promote. This actually may be easier than promoting t-shirts and mugs and all of that type of stuff. Why? Because you can promote the things that you use. People have a tendency, if they're interested in becoming a podcaster or whatever it is that you may be talking about, they may be interested in buying. Maybe you're a travel blogger. Maybe you are affiliate marketer. Maybe you want to talk about food. Whatever it is you want to talk about, if you sign up as an Amazon affiliate, you can then go on Amazon and post links to the products that you're already using. Let's say you're a cook. You can take all of the products. I'm talking about your spatulas, your um your dishes, your pots, your pans, your whatever it is that you're doing as a cook. You can post where they can buy it on Amazon if they use your link. And the catch to that is this: even if they don't purchase what you've posted, if they go to Amazon through your link, you'll still get paid. Still. But you offer those options on your site. If you're talking about food and you post the products that they can get, even the food products, if you post the food products, meaning 9 times out of 10 you can buy or purchase some of the products for food, or even get led into stores that you can purchase online the food products that you can link back on your website. So you just did a recipe. You just post all of the links to that food underneath of that article, paid if they click on it. Most 9 times out of 10, especially in the conditions that we're in, some people are afraid to go back out there. They will purchase all of the recipe food directly from those links. Easy money. And you can have this already set up on your website, in your blog articles, side panels, what have you. Money. Make it easy for you to make money off of your website. Next, you can do travel. I'm going to show you I'll do travel first since I mentioned it first. Travel. If you are a travel person, a lot of people, the best way that you can do this right now, most people are like, I don't want to travel. How can I travel? Should I travel? Should I not travel? People that got what they needed to get in order to start traveling, they are interested in getting away as quickly as possible. You can be a travel blogger offering them locations that they can go, whether they have or have not done certain things in order to travel. You could be the one that researches it. You could be the one that contacts these companies. And let's say you're a musician. Let's say your what it is that you mainly do affords for you to need to travel. If you contact these places ahead of time, especially knowing that these places are begging to bring tourism back into their establishments, restaurants, and places, if you contact them and you already have a YouTube channel, you can do video of you traveling to these places, promote underneath the video your products, what you took with you with the Amazon affiliates. You can do all of these types of things and you'll be making money off of that. You can also, um, like I said, you can combine it as a musician. You can sell your music on your site. Just as you put a podcast, um, your podcast player, you put your music player, offering them the opportunity to purchase, or because um, it may be just your podcast if they're not paying for the podcast, because some do memberships. If your site is a membership site and they're paying a certain amount of money for the podcast, then, but I'm suggesting to you right now, don't have them pay for the podcast. Okay, monetize it. That way, if you do the sponsored ads, then you can have money come in. Now, you don't want to do this too much, nor do you if you do sponsored videos where you're talking about products. That seems like product placement and it will become annoying, especially if you're a brand new podcaster. You just started. Nobody is interested in purchasing anything from you unless it is something that they really, really need, which means you can do knowledge. I've written books. I've written several books. I have an entire series of books that I could sell. Having a website allots me the ability that if I have an external website, I can feature these books somewhere on the page, especially if the topic matter I'm talking about in the podcast, I can put a link to the book that this is attached to that they can purchase. There are many ways that you can do this. Let's say you, like I said, if you do nutrition, maybe you are a health person and your podcast is about nutrition, coaching, how to get your body in the right position in order to be able to do what it is that you need to do. And you're selling health products, skincare products. These are things that would be supplements to go next to the thing that you are promoting, next to what it is that you're promoting in your podcast. If you sell these things, you can have a link in your website that links back to these types of products. Food. If you are a cook, people are people that have been in this 18 months of confusion, they love and have become accustomed to starting to cook, eating out, or getting food from delivered from outside. If you can do something to help them by teaching them through a blog how to cook, they will buy it. And the products, just like I said, you can list the ingredients at the bottom of the article and they can purchase them. I'm not sure. Let's see. Let me see here. See, I posted images of what is being used in the recipe. If I had these images linked to the actual product that you can purchase on Amazon, people would be able to buy it immediately. They'd be able to buy it immediately, take the recipe, and start working on it if they wanted to make it within the next couple of days. And you're getting paid for that, if that's the type of blog that you've created. There are multiple ways that you can get paid doing this kind of thing. Now, let's say you're a nonprofit, okay? You are a church, and you're either a church or a nonprofit where you provide a service for the homeless, for a food pantry, for what have you. What you would do for your podcast, you're talking about food, you're talking about the services that you provide. So you're going to do a food blog, you're going to do it just like that, but the money is going to be, it's going to be a donation, meaning all products, you would have a notice on your website. All things purchased on this website are going into that ministry. Okay? That would be how you would do it if you are a nonprofit. You can also, if you have enough of a following, you can apply for grants. Now let's see if I can do. During this past 18 months, a lot of businesses went ahead and applied for grants. I'm just closing these pages out. Give me a second, because I don't like having a bunch of tabs open if I'm not using them or done using them. You can apply for grants. So, let's see. You can apply for your business. If you have a business and the podcast is meant to push people towards the business that you have, you can apply for grants for money to enhance the business that you already have, because in some ways you are turning the podcast into a pass-through so that you can begin to make money off of the actual podcast. You can register for grants. You can do all of these types of things. Uh, let's see. You can do grant applications. Back when this started, I think it was a PPA. Let me see. The PPA grants, I think. Here now, as I said, a nonprofit. If this was, you can do a nonprofit grant, meaning any money that you get, you are using it to improve whatever it is that is your endeavor. If your podcast is about food, or your website is about food, and your nonprofit is about feeding homeless, feeding the people, because some people were not just homeless. Some people just needed food because their income had shifted and they were trying to make sure they caught up on bills over losing their house. They had to choose whether they were going to eat or not. So some people were just providing free meals for people during the season. If you had a business like that and you were just trying to get the word out through your podcast, you can do stuff like that. And you can apply for grants. You can do a grant proposal to apply for a grant in order to help people to fund, or to you're applying for the grant to fund that thing in order to better help other people. Now, catch 22 to this, some grants would not be accepted if you hadn't had the business or nonprofit for a year and that it was proven as being a business or nonprofit. Because there are a lot of people that were scamming the government for money just to use for themselves. Let's just be honest, they were doing that. But being able to do this to get the word out for your legitimate nonprofit thing that you are putting together, that can be a golden move for you. And we covered everything. I believe that we covered everything that I could think of that you would need to know about making money for your podcast. So I hope that this was a blessing to you. And that it gets you thinking about ways that after you have created your podcast, you can start to bring in revenue, not just from the amount of money that you can make by having the podcast linked up to your YouTube, linked up to your blogs, and just the money that comes from the podcast by doing sponsored ads. You can find other ways that you will be able to make money just using that as a avenue to put money and pull money through. That could make you and give you a more explosive income in this time. A lot of people are either at home determining whether they're going to go back to work, working from home. Having something like this could be an extra source of income and can create a stream of income that you may or may not have to babysit if all you're doing is creating a podcast that develops content for whatever it is that you are passionate about talking about. You could literally turn this into a lucrative business that could later bring you television opportunities and so many more things, and allot you the ability to create multiple streams of income for your family to be able to live, to survive, and to thrive on with something as simple as creating a podcast. So I hope that this blessed you, and I will see you in the next one. Until next time, this is Taj McCameron. Bye-bye.